Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Got my coffee, just thought we would chat here real quick. So about a week and a half ago, I put out 3 videos about my Keto Chow challenge that I did. If you don't know what a Keto Chow challenge is, it's just drinking or eating Keto Chow ice cream all day, every day for however long you decide. I ended up doing 2 full days, and then the last day I had breakfast and lunch, Keto Chow, and then dinner, I needed something savory. So I threw in the towel and had a regular savory dinner. So it was not quite 72 hours, but pretty close. And I never came back and did like a recap video and like to tell you about, my thoughts about it and, what happened and what I'm going to take from it moving forward. So in this video, I want to talk about that first, and then I will give you some thoughts on all of my challenges that I've done over the past month or so, couple months. It's been a couple months now, I think. Like reasons why I did them, and then also what I am taking from the challenges and applying moving forward. Just kind of my thoughts and where I'm at on that. So first off, with the Keto Chow challenge, the main reason I was doing it was to see if it was a good way to get my ketones up. For all of these challenges, my main goal has been to find a way. First of all, it was to get my ketones up because I am one who struggles with getting ketones up. I can eat a carnivore diet. I can eat a very, very keto-friendly, 20 grams of carbs diet, and my ketones don't rise very much. So I have to put a little bit of effort into getting those little bit higher ketone levels. So my goal first, and this was doable because I had that continuous ketone monitor on, I had the opportunity to use that. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try to figure out a way, a type of eating or lifestyle that I can do that gets my ketones up. That was the number one goal. My next motivation was to see how I felt with higher ketone numbers, because ketone numbers, for the sake of ketone numbers, don't really mean anything if they don't enhance your life in some way. If I felt just exactly the same and all was normal, why would I work hard to get my ketones up if it didn't actually help me at all? So number one goal, get my ketones up, figure out a way to be able to do that with my diet and lifestyle. Number 2, see how I felt at those higher ketone levels. And from there, I could make an informed decision about how worth it to me it is to put the effort in to get those ketone numbers. I did find that the higher ketones, and for me, this is another thing that was really important to find out, is like what higher ketones are for me. Because some people can get up, 5, 6, 7.0 millimolar, and that's high for them. And if they were, at 1, 2 millimolar, they would be like, oh, that's very low. And I think we're all a little bit different in that area, like where our body is happy with and the levels that it could get to in a reasonable amount of time or with a reasonable effort. And so what I found is that when I was putting in a reasonable effort to get my ketones up, the highest I ever saw them was 1.7. And that was on, a sardine fast. So I now know that that's, pretty high for me. And so what I found when I got those higher levels for me is that I liked the way my brain felt. I liked the way my brain functioned. I've shared my journey with iron deficiency for about a year now. And something that comes along with iron deficiency and with those struggles is brain fog and just your brain not processing things quickly. You don't have the oxygen needed to function every part of your body, but including your brain. You just can't function to peak capacity when you don't have enough iron. And what I found with the little bit higher ketone levels is that my brain just ran a little bit more smoothly. And for me, that is so incredibly worth it. When I can speak without stumbling over my words, like there are times when it's bad enough that I actually just slur my words and it's like I can't get the words to come out of my mouth. My brain and my mouth, it's like there's this disconnect. And so it's like I have to keep talking until I run out of thoughts. I can't think the thoughts and get ready to say them. Next, I have to pause, collect my thoughts again, and then I start talking again. When I have that little bit higher amount of ketones, it just makes the connection a little bit stronger. So I did decide it was worth it for me to put in that little bit of effort to try to get higher ketone levels more often. I am not one of those that thinks you have to have really super high ketones at every moment of every single day in order to get the benefits. Definitely, if I was struggling with something like cancer or, some kind of a terminal disease where I really wanted the healing effect from ketones, that would be a completely different story. But for me, where I'm at, I just want to have more ketones more often. I found that when I ate my regular keto, almost carnivore diet, my ketones almost never even got into what is considered nutritional ketosis. I see 0.5 as the highest ever. And typically nutritional ketosis starts at 0.5 and then above. I'll throw out here that also a lot of people will say that the longer you do keto and you're more keto adapted, you just use up the ketones that you make. And so they don't just sit around in your blood. So they're not there to be measured. And that totally makes sense to me. And I kind of had that in my mind previously when, I wouldn't be able to get my ketones up and I'd be like, well, I'm just keto adapted. I've been on keto for a long time and my body's just using them. So it's all good. And I kind of had a challenge to that when I saw how I felt on those higher ketone levels. You can hear all of these opinions from different people, different very smart people, doctors, and that holds some value, but it really comes down to your own personal experience. So I kind of challenge that notion of, I have lots of ketones. I'm just using them up. So I'm getting all of the benefits. I found that when I put a little bit of extra effort into getting my ketones a little higher, I was receiving some benefit that I wasn't receiving when my ketone levels were lower. So that trumps experts' opinions of, everything is the same, you're fine, your ketone levels don't matter, the number on the meter doesn't matter. For me, now I have personal experience saying they do matter a little bit to me. Not that it's the be-all, end-all, not that I think that, you have to have these super high ketone levels at every moment. Not that it isn't true that you're using up ketones. I'm sure I was using up ketones. I just found that when I put a little more effort in, I got some benefit from it that made it worth it to me to put that effort in. So anyways, my goal in all of these challenges, including the Keto Chow challenge, was to see if it was a legitimate way to get my ketones up. I had the experience of the sardine fast that got my ketones up really nicely. I had the experience of the egg fast that got my ketones up really nicely. My 80-20 fat to protein experiment where I was trying to keep my protein up to 100 grams. It did get my ketones up a little bit, but not as much as the egg fast or the sardine fast. What I found with the Keto Chow fast is that, yes, it is absolutely a legitimate way for me to get my ketones up. I saw my numbers rise about the same as I did on the egg fast. So again, not super high numbers, but I never get super high numbers, but I was able to see my numbers at the 1.0 and a little bit above and stay there pretty consistently after the first day and a half of the Keto Chow challenge. So for me, the challenge was really successful because I found that Keto Chow for me is extremely ketogenic, especially with the 2 ounces of butter that I typically add to my Keto Chows. And it just is another tool for me, something that I can throw into my diet when I want to or need to get my ketones up. Like I shared on the videos throughout the Keto Chow challenge, my biggest struggle was not hunger, it was more cravings. And it was specifically cravings for savory things. After having a couple of Keto Chows in the day, the thought of a third one was oh man, I do not want that. I do not want that. I want more than anything to have a steak or some eggs or some cheese or just something savory. Savory cravings were quite intense. So while I do think it is a really legitimate way for me to get my ketones up, I probably will not do a 3-day Keto Chow challenge. I probably won't even do a full 1-day Keto Chow challenge. But I do think what I learned from doing the Keto Chow challenge, I will apply moving forward. And so now let's just talk a little bit about what I'm taking from my experiences doing these challenges and how I'm going to use it moving forward. So there's been a lot of kind of negative talk about challenges in the community recently, and it's only a specific type of challenge, it seems like, because things like a BBBE challenge or a lion diet challenge or a fasting challenge or an exercise challenge, a walking challenge, a dairy-free challenge, a no coffee challenge, like all of those challenges are like halo, green light. Those are all good and fine and wonderful. But things like the sardine fast, the egg fast, the Keto Chow challenge, those ones seem to trigger some people as something negative. I don't fully understand that. I recognize that people can take any of these challenges and do them with the wrong motivation. Like if it's, I'm desperate for weight loss, or I hate my body and this is another way to punish myself, or I'm just looking for this magic bullet that fixes my body and mind and makes everything perfect. We can have that mindset for any challenge. You could have that mindset for the BBBE challenge or the lion diet or anything, or an exercise challenge. You could totally go into any of those with the wrong motivation. So the idea that they could be done with the wrong motivation, I don't think is a reason to delegitimize any of the challenges. Otherwise, we could delegitimize keto. We could delegitimize exercise. We have to judge whether the challenge is good or bad based on some other standard. And we could look at it nutritionally and say, I don't think going on a 3-day gummy bear challenge is sound nutritionally, and therefore I wouldn't recommend doing it. That's one way that you could, judge a challenge. And as far as the sardine challenge, the egg fast challenge, the Keto Chow challenge, even though they're not like full-time diets that I don't think anyone would recommend you do for the rest of your life exclusively, I don't think there's a big argument to be made that they are unhealthy nutritionally for like periods of about 3 days. So if somebody wants to make the argument that nutritionally they're unhealthy, that's totally fine. Those are not the arguments that I really hear or have heard in the community. It's more that people are doing them for the wrong reasons, and that it's, mentally unhealthy, or it's, pushing them towards disordered eating, something like that. That's totally fine, but it has more to do with the person rather than the challenge itself. So I have a very clear conscience about the reasons and the motivations that I had for doing all of these challenges. I'm so incredibly glad that I did them. They were not a be-all, end-all in and of themselves. I wasn't, doing the sardine challenge to see if that was going to be the diet I was going to eat for the rest of my life. Egg fast diet I was going to eat the rest of my life. It was more to experience my body's reaction, both just how I felt as well as the numbers on the ketone meter, and then use that information moving forward to make my life better, enhance, my diet, and make it better for me. And so, like I said, I am someone who does not naturally get higher ketone levels. And I was able to find, through doing these challenges and using the CKM, the continuous ketone monitor, tools for myself to use to get my ketones up. I was also very happy to find that when I did use these tools of like 3-day challenges, the raise in my ketones actually carried over. So I was able to kind of go back to a higher protein diet for about 2 to 3 days after. And I saw my ketone levels stay higher. As long as I didn't go too high carb, I found that I could keep my ketones a little higher for like 2 or 3 days. So one of the things that all of the challenges that I did had in common was that I had to keep my protein a little bit lower than what I naturally do or normally eat when I'm not really counting. So typically I keep my protein between like 120 and 160 grams per day. And I love that. I love all of the benefits of protein, and I feel really good and satiated that way, but I don't get those benefits of the higher ketones when I'm there. But now, after doing all of these challenges, I feel like I have tools that I can sprinkle into my diet in order to get those higher ketone levels, but I don't have to like live that way forever. I can kind of cycle through So it's a little bit more like finding a diet pattern rather than just an everyday diet. So here's what I'm going to try moving forward. This is my idea, and we'll see how it goes. It's still in the experimental phase. I am going to try to take some aspects of several of these challenges and see if I can put them together and get the same ketone benefits. I just started today. I'm going to do 3 days. 3 days kind of seemed like a magical number for bumping up the ketones. On day 2 and 3, that's when I saw the highest ketone numbers. So it takes, if I've been eating kind of higher protein or a little bit more carbs, 1 day is not enough to get my ketones bumped up. I have to have at least 2, but I think 3 is a really good amount. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a 1 egg fast meal. So an egg fast meal would be however many eggs you want, and then a tablespoon of fat, either a tablespoon of fat or an ounce of cheese per egg. So it ends up being a pretty high fat meal, percentage wise, almost up to like 80% fat. And so I'm going to do 1 egg fast meal per day. I'm going to do 1 Keto Chow, either as a shake or as ice cream. And with the 2 ounces of fat in there, I mixed up some the other day, and it was 3 tablespoons of butter and 1 tablespoon of MCT oil. Just going to try that and see how it goes. So that also is close to that 80%. It's like 78% fat, and that'll probably be like breakfast and lunch. And then dinner, I'm going to try doing just a fatty carnivore-ish meal, kind of keep it loose, not anything too strict, but basically just enough protein to get my protein up to about 100 grams. So I'm doing 100 grams, even though that didn't bump my ketones up as high before when I tried the 80-20 with 100 grams of protein, because I have recently added in exercise. And so I found when I wasn't, doing like the HIIT training, cardio, weights, exercise regularly, I needed to keep my protein like 70 to 80 grams per day in order to see the ketones go a little higher. And I'm thinking that with the exercise added in, bumping up my protein to that 100 grams, I'm hoping to see my my ketones rising a little bit more than they did with the 80-20 with 100 grams of protein. That's what I want to see. I want to see if the exercise is going to help boost my ketones a little bit and allow me to eat a little bit more protein than I was able to eat before. So that's it. I'm going to do 3 days of that. Egg fast meal, Keto Chow meal, and then a third meal that's going to be like a fatty carnivore. And basically, if I eat the egg fast meal and the Keto Chow meal, I don't really have to count anything. So I'm not like counting macros throughout the day. It's just, those are really easy to just throw together because you're, just following a formula. And then at the end of the day, I will figure out how much protein both of those were. And then I will concoct a meal that has enough protein to get me to about that 100 grams, and then also have it be a higher fat meal. So anyways, I'm going to bring you along on that. I don't really want to call it a challenge because all of the negativity about challenges recently. If I were going to call it a challenge, I'd probably just call it like a ketosis challenge. It's not a weight loss challenge. I forgot to mention that I did not lose any weight on the 3 days that I did the Keto Chow challenge. Although the first day we went to the river and I got a ton of sun. So like my weight jumped up after that, I think because of like the water weight and inflammation. So it was not cut and dry. And also right now I am just not weighing at all because I added in exercise, and I was sore, and you hold water when you're sore, and weight is inherently difficult because there's so many different things that you're weighing besides just fat. And so normally it's not a perfect measure. And then when you are first adding in more intense exercise, it's even more imperfect of a measure. And so I've just decided not to weigh myself for probably the full 40 days that I'm doing the exercise challenge. It is just going to be just see how I feel doing it and check my ketones at that one point in the morning where I always saw the highest number. So I can keep tabs on my ketones and see if the strategy that I'm using is a good one for keeping my ketones up a little bit. One other thing that I will be keeping an eye on during this, and this is something that I talked about a couple weeks ago about mono-food diets and how like the egg fast, the sardine fast, even the Keto Chow challenge, you're like reducing down the type of food or like the flavor of food that you're eating, and you get kind of palate fatigue. I definitely experienced that on all of the challenges I did. And that palate fatigue can actually help you eat less. Like I found that my hunger was legitimately reduced. It wasn't just that I was the same amount hungry, but I didn't feel like eating the eggs or the sardines or whatever. It was that the hunger was actually lower. There was some kind of a ghrelin lowering effect that took place with especially the sardine challenge. That was like very, very intense. And I'm wondering if I mix things up like this, where I have my nice, sweet, delicious Keto Chow, and then I have my savory egg fast meal, and then my other savory meal, if mixing up those kinds of food and having it to be different foods is going to actually make me hungrier. I'm definitely going to keep my eye on that. So these 3 days, I'm going to kind of see what level of ketosis I can get into. And I'm thinking, this is what I'm thinking. If I have been eating higher protein and a little bit higher carb for a while, which I have been this past week, went out to eat a couple of different times, like went out on a date with my husband, just had more carbs and probably more protein than normal. Like my ketones this morning were 0.2 when I measured at the point where they're always the highest of the day. They were 0.2. It's very sad. So anyways, when I am in this state of, having eaten higher protein, having eaten a little higher carb for a few days, I think it takes about 3 days to get back into those deeper states of ketosis. But if I do the 3 days and then I go back to a higher protein keto for a day or two, I don't think it'll take 3 days to get back. I think I can maintain a little bit higher level of ketosis if I don't let myself go out of it for too long, if that makes sense. So I kind of have the idea that I will use the 3-day reset, however I end up formulating it moving forward, as after, I've been off, a little bit higher protein, higher carb for a few days. And then if I do that 3 days, then I could take 1 or 2 days off and then maybe 1 or 2 days back on and kind of cycle it that way. So I don't have to do like a full 3 days every single time. It does seem like that ketone effect carries over. And so I can eat a little bit higher protein for a couple days and then it doesn't kick me so far out of ketosis, like back to the 0.2 level. So those are my thoughts. Let me know down below what I should call this not challenge, ketosis days. I don't know. Let me know if you have any ideas. Those are my thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and I will just see you again in the next one.